Good morning. I'm personally glad to be back after a week away for our missions trip. Um, you're going to hear from the members of the team that went out to Guatemala in a couple of moments. Um, we are just blessed. We are blessed to have gone. We are blessed to experience what we experienced, and we are blessed also to be back. Um, Leading up to it, many things were done in preparation. Many things were shared with the team in preparation. But until we went there and experienced it, it really didn't hit home for us. So our prayer today is that what we're able to share as testimonies of what God did in and through our lives throughout this past week in a country not so far away will just spark something, ignite something, maybe fan a flame that you already have burning inside of you to take another step of faith in God and with God in your life. And missions does not always have to be outside of this country. It could be right here in our backyard. And I pray that God will do what He wants to do in and through our lives. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask if the team can come forward. And I'm going to ask if Ann can just come forward and take over and introduce the team and take over the rest of the service in terms of the testimony time from the team. And then we'll wrap it up with a time of celebration and worship as well. Let's give them a hand.
Morning, guys. Let's say buenos dias. um, it's good to be home. Depends what home means to everybody here. Home became different things to a lot of people over the course of this last week. I'm at a loss of words. Going there, I remember preparing the team for the last, month, 2 months for this trip. It's like Pastor C mentioned, you can only say so much until you go there and experience the actual uh, environment and what we were doing. Um, for me, it was going home. For me, spending 10 months there and then not being able to go back and then to go back with family this time was really, I was, it was just overwhelming for me in the sense of I was going home. And over the course of the last week, I got a chance to see these people standing here, your church, this body, go and do amazing things. You're going to hear from all of them about the different things that we did. I just kind of want to share with you just the people, the leadership that was there, and the different people that we encountered while we were there. When I was in Guatemala, I had leadership over me, Randall and Jackie Darby, who poured into my life while I was there, and they actually took us in for the week, and they became mom and dad, and they can all vouch for that. They were mom and dad to us, and they were such a blessing for us, and it was through them and their connections to the people of Guatemala and their connections to the different organizations and ministries there that we were able to go into schools and go into villages and go into um, uh, homeless areas and minister and bring the gospel to these locations. And throughout the week, we met pastors in villages who literally have like dirt floors and have tin roofs, and were able to minister in their churches. We were able to go to a school and a church up on a mountain and minister with the pastor that was there, Pastor Jonathan, and then also being able to partner with local government school leadership while we were there, and which gave us an opportunity to go into these government schools who children come from very underprivileged situations, which you'll also hear about. Being able to meet a man named Giuseppe, who was probably the most loving person I've ever met in my life, who has so much joy inside of him and so much sarcasm as well, whose smile can light up a room, but who brings food and hope to homeless people. It is amazing to see the hands and the feet at work. This is what the body of Christ looks like. This is what we're supposed to be doing day to day, not just going out into the different nations, but going out into our communities. I'm gonna start passing the mic along, and you guys can hear the different testimonies of all the different things that we did out of the course of this week. And I pray that whatever we're feeling, there's so much excitement and there's so much anticipation that's standing here, that you guys catch just a little bit of what we want to share with you guys about this week. So I'll pass it.
Hi guys. On the first day, we went to this really small village, and in the village, we went into this tiny church, tiny church, and this church was literally like a shack, right? The floors were dirt, and the ceilings were just these steel boards, and there was a pastor and his wife who had just had twins, and they were praying for a boy, and one of the twins was a boy and a girl. And so we walked in there, and Anne had told me, Priscilla and Jovan, she said that we would have to share a word each, right? And I was nervous, as I am right now. I was really nervous, and I got really nervous, stomach ache and everything, and I was like, I can't do this. I was making so many notes to write out, what am I going to talk about? Like, I don't have that big of a testimony. Like, I had no idea what to talk about. And one of the people on the teams came up to me and was like, just put your stuff down, just go. That's your part. You have to just go, stand there, and God will do the rest. And I'm like, you're kidding me. I'm not going to go there and stand there, and God's not going to do the rest. Like, you're saying it, but you don't know, right? And it came to be my turn because I was first. I was the first person to speak. And up until that moment, I was like, I don't want to go. Right? And they're calling me in Spanish too. And I was like, I have to go. I put my stuff down. I put my book down. I put my Bible down. 3 pages worth of notes I put down. And I walked up there, and I don't know what came out of my mouth, but these people were craving it. And I was blown away because they were craving me to talk about my God. They were craving me to talk about my experience because they were feeding off of it. They were living off of it. And you can tell how blown away they were by my simple words, my very, very simple words. And God literally took out all the notes that I wrote, and he did his own thing. I have no idea what happened that night, but the presence was so amazing. There was an altar call. There were people coming up for prayer. There were people falling from prayer. There were people crying from prayer. And the pastor of that church was so humbled and so moved by the Spirit that he fell to his knees in front of his own wife and kids, and that's something you don't see very often. And one more crazy thing that happened was that during worship was so powerful. We were worshiping in Spanish for the first time, and we were like, we don't know how to pronounce these words, but we're doing it. And it became so powerful to the point where it started raining, right? It was pouring. There was thunder, and then it was pouring, right? And we noticed it, but I was like, oh, is it going to come through the thing? No, it didn't come through the thing. But the weird thing is, it stopped after a while, and when everything was over and we got ready to leave, a couple of us were looking outside. We were walking outside, and there were no drops of water outside of that church area. Like, you can see the little drops of water by the church, but you couldn't see water anywhere else. It was as if it had poured only on that church, as if it was raining on that church. And I was like, whoa, this is day one.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. To try and squeeze everything that we saw into 2 to 3 minutes, it is almost impossible because they say like a picture's worth 1,000 words. I don't think 10,000 words could paint the pictures that we saw this week. On Monday, actually going into this trip, we were told that we're going to be climbing a mountain. And me, a week before, I actually tried to run around the block, and I actually passed out. So climbing this mountain, or knowing that we had to climb a mountain, was a really big challenge, and I thought it was probably just a joke. But once we got to the base of the mountain, you know, it looked like 10,000 miles high. I'll be honest with you, but you know, as we started climbing it, for me, it was a serious struggle. I mean, because I'm in such great shape, you know, it was really challenging for me. Um, for me, when we were climbing this mountain, you know, the steepness was it was just intense. It was crazy. It's as if these staircases that we have in church, it was in an incline like that, but with no steps. And there was times when I was physically struggling. You know, my brothers were we were taking in the back end, you know, for safety. Uh, you know, and I had a lot of support, you know, motivation and things like that from my team. You know, um, and as we're climbing it seemed as this mountain was never ending. I was like, oh, is that where we're supposed to be? No, no, it's a little bit further. Once we got to that further point, is this where we're at? No, it's a little bit further than this. So you know, once we got to the top, it was just a sense of accomplishment, and it felt like you know the whole way through, God just was in the back end actually pushing us up. And once we got to the mountaintop, the first place we went to was a school. And you guys are probably thinking, oh, it's like Elma Memorial or Sewanaka High School. No, the school was literally the size of this wall to maybe this post and to that wall. That's it. It was a 10 by 12. There was kids from 6 to 16. And the school's roof was made out of tin. And the posts were literally 2 by 4s. It had one window that, when it was initially built, there was no window there. It was just complete darkness inside, and there was all the light came through one door. But the missionaries that we dealt with, he actually cut out a window, one window, just so they could get air and a little bit of light into that school. To see that what these kids lived through, and then what I lived through, and what I complained about throughout my life, it's just absolutely mind-boggling. You know, it was a real eye opener, um, and it and then after that we went to their church, which was another maybe 10. It felt like another hour hike, but it was really like 5 minutes. Um, Once we went to their church, up on top of this mountain, it was their village church. Uh, I sometimes come here and complain like crazy, and see I complain to see because he's the only one I could really complain to and express all my aggression on. But I sometimes complain about the sound system here, certain things that go on here, all that. This church had 3 light bulbs hanging from a tin shack with no walls, and their power came from a solar panel. One solar panel, that was it. Their sound system was old JBL, I'm sorry, old JVC car radio speakers or something along those lines. That was their sound system. And the happiness that the members of that church had, just being able to worship, even in those surroundings, that environment was absolutely amazing. They just had like a real love and hunger for God. And it was something that affected me, and I'm pretty sure affected my team. Just to see that was absolutely a miracle. And we were able to bless them with uh, 12 volt to 120-volt power inverter. What it does is converts 120 volts into 12 volts, so people could charge their car phones, stuff like that. Which for them, a cell phone is the biggest thing because everyone has one, but not everyone has electricity to charge them. So this was a way of for them to provide um, a service to their community. Uh, and then coming down the mountain after all this, wonderful, like overwhelming experience, we're coming down, and I'm like, oh, I got this. Gravity's gonna help me out. I could definitely come down the mountain faster than anybody else. So we're coming down, and coming down is when we realized how steep and how high this mountain was. Even going up, we didn't realize. I think we all asked each other, did we just seriously climb, like go up the same path? We couldn't believe it was the same path that we went up. It seemed even steeper and
more intense. But by the end of the by the time we got to the bottom, we realized that you know God was in full control the entire time. And I think the message that we got was, if you have any mountains in your life, no matter how big they are, if you trust in God, if even we were teaching a song that said, if you have faith like a mustard seed, tell the mountain to move and it will move. And in your life, if you have any mountains that are as big as this, just tell God how big, tell the mountain how big your God is, and tell it to move, and it will move. That's it.
Praise God. So that was just Sunday and Monday. Tuesday, we had an opportunity to go and minister in a red light district. And it was a very moving experience for me. Truly felt like a few of us had a chance to walk with Randall, who was like the missionary father to us this week, to walk what they called the line. And the line is like this long block, and on either side is like this one level flat building with these doors in tons of rooms, and these doors that go into these rooms. And Randall led us along this line, and the purpose of it was to invite all the women who worked there to come to a meeting that we were about to have at a place called the Oasis. So we walked down this line, and I got to witness Randall call each and every woman standing by the door, inviting them to come to this ministry called the Oasis. And as we were walking there, truly felt like we had entered into the enemy's camp. It was crazy to see how women stood by their doors like showpieces, inviting men to come in to their rooms. Crazy to see that there were men walking up and down that line looking for whom they would spend time with. And I was reminded in that experience of how so many walk in that blindness, that they are living in spiritual darkness, dark to blind to who they are in Christ, blind to the love of God, blind to that there's there's a God that loves them with the greater love, and to be able to walk that line, to see darkness like that, but to be a part of an experience where we were trying to be a light in that dark place was quite amazing. And that walk truly broke me, and was a walk I will never forget. And Cassie's going to tell you the rest of that story.
As Ensign was saying, when we arrived, I felt like we were at the enemy territory, and I felt darkness all over the place, but we were light. And I also witnessed God use people. As certain people were speaking, I saw some people there. They feel like they don't belong outside. They belong inside. They were crying. They were hungry for God. I saw some people in our church, again, used by God, and they let themselves go and be vessels for God, and be the eyes for God, and also be the smile of God, the touch of God, the feet of God. I saw another let go of papers and just let God flow all over her, and for the right word to come out, for God to speak through her. While she was speaking, I looked around, and I saw people crying. I saw women crying. It was just like a conviction for them, to make them feel like outside there's no light, but in Christ there's light and there's love. And the love they were looking outside doesn't belong outside, it belong inside. And
The oasis was just like heaven. As I saw people coming in, it was just like um, souls that were lost. They were coming into heaven gate. I watched Pastor C like Jesus were receiving these women. I saw people like angels were pouring out their love and touch them and smile to them and um, kiss them and hug them. I just felt like even in our life here in Elmwood, there's a lot of souls that lost, and we have to reach out to these souls. And as this team goes forward, we want to be the feet of God, the eyes of God, the hands of God to touch, to smile, and to make people understand and believe that only in God there's love, only in God there's light. That's all.
So yeah, that was Tuesday, and if you're wondering, the day wasn't over. The next part of our mission trip came with partnering with this man named Giuseppe. As Anne kind of alluded, he's one of the most genuine, most loving people that you will ever meet. And what we did on Tuesday night was if you've ever done midnight run with us, we did something similar to that where every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Giuseppe with a small team will come into a school and make a whole bunch of sandwiches just to go out into the streets and feed the homeless. And we were blessed enough, and God gave us the opportunity to help partner with them. So what we did on Tuesday night was we all came together as a team, made about 300 sandwiches, made some soup and this kind of oatmeal dish called a tol, and we were able to just go out into the streets and bless the people with food. And that one of the most was a sight that you can't forget, just to see how many people were on the streets. And this was on a night that was pouring rain. So we're all trying to get ready to go into the streets, and I'm sitting there wondering, are there going to be people on the streets? Because it was just pouring rain, and none of us were expecting it. And we stopped by a couple of different stops, and the first two stops, it broke my heart because I was expecting to see a lot of older people, and the first two stops were majority filled with kids. And these are children the ages of like Sarah, Sammy, and they're just on the streets. And the presence that this man, Giuseppe, has in this community was just overwhelming. When they see his truck come by, they know it's him that's coming. And they whenever he speaks, he always gives them a little bit of a story or tells them about Christ before we end up feeding them. The tentativeness that they give him, he has this authority over them, and it was just amazing to see. And it really took us out of our comfort zone because that last stop, usually whenever he prayed for them, he would just pray over them as a group. And that last stop, it really took us out of our comfort zone because he just said in Spanish, just right after he was finished talking to them, just, "Hey, you guys as a team, go pray for them." And for that, it was just one of those. Really took us out of our comfort zone, but it was a real blessing just to see how he works in this community. And that was only the first night that we got to partner with him. The next day, we got to go to a school that he helps run, and it's a school for the less fortunate and for the poorer class. And basically, they just come in and they just kind of learn. And we were able to minister to two different groups of people, a younger group and an older group. And we were also able to uh, help paint the school, which was a need that they had, and we were able to bless them. And seeing these kids just was just amazing. They were just so loving, and I'm sure a lot of people, everyone else is talking about kids, they'll tell you how much love that these children crave. And just when you just walk up to them, you don't even know them, and they'll just run up to you and give you a hug. And just to see the joy that they have in just seeing you or being able to get a gift or win a little bit of a prize. There's this one moment that really stuck out to me when we were serving to the children and we were playing this game of hot potato at the school, and all these little kids are just really getting involved with it, and they just have all this joy on their face when they're playing this game. And it got down to, we started around with I think like 80 kids playing this giant game of hot potato. It was pretty chaotic. And it got down to these last two kids, and when this one kid won, this was, I saw him and I know he was smiling, and I just took him up and hoisted him up to my shoulders, and the way people describe it is just this boy just had this joy where he didn't come into that day expecting to just be hoisted on someone's shoulders, get a medal, and have everyone look at him, and we're all clapping for him. And I know it definitely made his day where we were just loving on him, and it was just a sight to see that there's a lot of kids out there and here as well that just crave attention and crave love, and we had the opportunity to just help serve them and show them the love of Christ. So that was Wednesday.
So throughout the week, we got to go to a couple of government schools as well, and these were formed by the former First Lady of the country who wanted to set up schools for the less fortunate kids from the lower classes, and but also include a component of Christ and faith in the schools as well. So we were able to have the opportunity, because of the partnerships that were developed there by the missionaries, to go. And I believe one of the ladies that had been restored from Oasis or so on was currently working in some of those schools. So we were able to develop that partnership with them. And the first school we went to was called Paradise in Spanish. And when you see the kids there, you see the kids in uniform, you see them that they're very well dressed and kept, and you think that, they must have great homes, they must be fine. But to hear from the director that these are kids coming from abandoned homes, and maybe even with one parent with multiple children, and this may be the only real clothing that they have, that the school provides for them and even washes for them, and they may only get that one meal a day. It was heartbreaking. And to see the smiles on these kids' faces, and to see visitors come and to just love on them and to spend time with them. And we were able to do some puppet songs with them, and sing some songs with them. And we had our very infamous David and Goliath skit that we also performed as well. So just spending that time with them and playing games with them was such an honor, and for us to dance with them, hug them, and just tell them that Christ loves them, just to see the joy on their faces and give them treats. And it was such a great time. And after we had served in the school, we actually went to some of the places, as Austin had talked about, like some of those street places where the homeless are. That's where these children are coming from. And we even went to another place that's known as the Dump, where families set up tents and they live around, just waiting for garbage trucks to come. And we were able to see that from the top of a mountain, just looking down, to see all these trucks coming in and just dumping garbage, and to see the lines of people waiting to go through it. Nothing on their hands, they're just wearing whatever they have, and with bare hands going through the trash of the country, pretty much, to find plastic or to find something to be able to go and give and to provide for their family. And and there were vultures just flying all around, and we just felt the sense of just death and darkness when we were there, because right next to that is the cemetery, and these cemeteries are just like kind of like what there are like in India, where they're kind of in the wall and not really buried. They're boxes and structures where the bodies are kind of put into. And if people stop paying for them per month, they literally take the casket out and just toss it into the dump. And so the vultures are flying around all around, and all you see is just vultures. At some point, like, it was just covering the sky at one point. It was just vultures everywhere, and just the stench of death, and to see, and the smell obviously was very overwhelming, because it is a dump. So that smell of just like sour milk was just in the air, and we couldn't get it out of our noses even after we left. And to see people just setting up tents with little bags of tents with wooden sticks to hold them up, to spend the day there to provide for their family, and to see that that's where these kids were coming from. And then to see that, just to show a smile, just to hug them and love on them and to give them that day, and what the school was providing, the school was really paradise for these kids.
So the same day, we had to go to our last stop. So this is sort of we're starting to realize like, okay, this is probably going to be the last stop where we end up ministering and doing our skit. It was the children's hospital, the local children's hospital, where you have these kids um, from really less fortunate backgrounds who are ill from birth. And so you walk into this facility and you see these kids and their parents. Some don't have parents, um, and you just see it. You just sense, just hopelessness and just they want some sort of joy in their life, and we're just going in there. We're sort of absorbing the environment. And so we had our team. We had a place where the hospital let us set up our skit. We had to set up chairs. We split up the team into half, one setting up the stage and one going with the nurses to each of these rooms to bring these kids, to put them on wheelchairs and have them go to this staging area. And as we followed these nurses into these rooms, all we saw was kids with different disabilities, Down syndrome to kids who had cerebral palsy. Some, couldn't even walk. All of them, kids from, say, 3 to 7, 8, um, and as I was walking around, you just felt it was unfair because these kids wanted to go out and play like the other kids, but they just couldn't. And so as I was looking around the condition of these kids, I saw this one kid. Her name is Elizabeth, about 4 or 5 years old. And I saw Ancy and some of the nurses sort of tending to her. And from a distance, I saw her hands were tied to the crib, and she had a drip coming to her nose, into her nose. And the reason why they had to tie her is because whenever they let her loose, she would immediately yank it off of her nose. Um, and so I just kind of like wanted to walk a little bit closer to what was really happening. And you could see this kid was sort of, didn't have too much emotions going on, just looking around. And I was walking closer, and I just wanted to take a look at her face. She just looked up, and her face just broke into a huge smile. And that's, to me, that's where I saw God. In conditions when I saw that there was absolutely no hope, um, no life, you saw love in a child that to us we thought had nothing, but she had everything when she had people around her. And so and that really moved me to just see the look in her eyes, and it made me think that we're so fortunate to just operate every day having no issues in our lives, and put things into perspective. And so we took these kids, we put them in the wheelchairs, we took them to the place where we had our team set up to show them skits and puppets, dancing to music, and some of us stood right beside the kid and just just being a part of their experience, and you had to see the joy in their faces, just seeing different colors, people performing for them. It was really an eye-opening experience, and something that I would never forget in my life. So.
I'm just going to quickly share how we were able to bless some of the leaders at the different locations that you guys just heard about. Not only us 12 here, but as well as each and every one of you that are sitting here and that are actually all around this country. We were able to get donations and able to provide for some of these leaders that were at these locations. Justin talked about. We were able to help give an inverter to that pastor at the top of the mountain so that they can actually use the electricity that they had set up with the solar panel. I thank God that he was able to explain it like he did because I wasn't going to. The government school that we went to, our team leaders, our missionary father and mother, Randall and Jackie, they were able to purchase cookies and juice. I'm talking about the little box of juice and like just regular cookies. And we were able to bring maybe like 10, 12 packs of those to that government school and just hand it out to each child in every classroom. And just to see their excitement of getting one little packet of cookie and a box of juice. And I heard one of the leaders saying that to them, it's like a delicacy. To see that excitement they got just from a box of juice that we kind of just toss out like it's nothing. The groceries and for the sandwiches and the soup that Austin had talked about in the school with Giuseppe, we were able to create or make 300 sandwiches, along with soup and that other dish atol that he was talking about. We were able to provide that and we gave out pretty much everything to the homeless one of those nights. He also talked about the school that we were able to help paint. They had 3 levels to the school, and we painted the outside walls of all 3 levels. And all the paint, all the supplies we left with them, that was all purchased and supplied by our team and also by each and every one of you guys. The black socks that we got for the boys' school, that each and every one of you also helped out with, we were able to provide that to the director of that school as well, and gave out a lot of prizes and the CWS wristbands. At the Children's Hospital, Jobin just talked about, there was a lady by the name of Mimi, that has been ministering there for over 20 years, I believe. And as I told her that day as well, she's not just a mother to her own children, which one of them works with Randall and Jackie, but she's a mother to many children at that Children's Hospital. And we were able to bless her with some of the supplies and prizes and also a small little financial support for her that day as well. And like I just mentioned, we had leftover supplies and game equipment and prizes and stuff, so we were able to leave that with Randall and Jackie as well. And finally, the final night, we were able to bless them, Randall and Jackie. You guys are watching. Randall and Jackie, we were able to bless them with a small token of appreciation, to bless them personally through finance, as well as their family. They have 2 children, their son Caleb, who was actually in Dallas, as well as Jenna, who was with us pretty much the entire week. And in addition to that, we were also able to bless Krista, who was Jenna's friend, who was with us, that helped translate for each and every one of us that ministered. She came with us every day of the week. We were able to bless her with a small token of appreciation with finance. Us 12 were the hands and feet of Christ in Guatemala, but each and every one of you here that supported, but more than financially supported, prayed and fasted for us. We thank you. We felt the power and the presence of God with us every single place we went. We saw crazy things happen. Ann told us from the beginning, no matter what we say, you guys are not going to understand it. You have to get there. You have to be there to see it and experience it firsthand to truly know what it feels like. But just as a word of appreciation, we thank you. The ministries there, thank you. Thank you very much for your financial support, but more importantly, your prayers continue to bless each and every one of us, as well as the ministries that we were able to touch there.
So every night we had devotionals, and this is when Anne, she picked one of us to speak and to lead devotionals where we would meditate on the word and have fellowship. So for me, I feel like this was really important to me because I feel like with the 12 people, the 11 people that I went with, I wasn't as close with them. So when I got to pray with them and have fellowship with them, I felt like I was getting closer to God because I'm praying with these people and I'm doing work with them, and I was just really touched and moved. And I remember Tuesday night, a couple of us were talking to C, and like we were all just like gathering after devotionals, and we were just talking about a topic, and C mentioned something to me, and it really broke me. It broke me because when he said something about like my dad or my family, it broke me because I was just like, oh, like why am I like I don't need to be thinking about this. Like this is not what I should be thinking about. Like I'm here to do a mission. Like I don't need to be thinking about my family. And I'm really happy that he said that Tuesday because the following night, that Wednesday when we had devotionals and Priscilla was leading it, um, it was like a crazy experience where like when we were all praying, it was just it was just like a place where it was a place of healing. It was a place where I just kept crying onto the Lord because I was just like, this is something I've been like building up from like years before. I mean, I'm only 20, but still, like years before from like childhood. But like, I was just like, this is crazy. Like, this is not something like I've even like imagined to like pray about or anything. Like, I was just like, no, like I feel like I have such a perfect life or whatever. But I didn't feel like this is something that was like really like bringing me down. And that Wednesday, like I really felt like everything was just healed. Like I felt like with like the presence was just so like deep, and like I just felt like Jesus was like there, and like someone was just hugging me, and it was just like a good feeling, and I just felt so like healed and just cleaned, and it was just a great feeling. And I'm just so thankful for I got to experience it with my team, which I said like, oh, I'm not close with, but I'm so happy because I got so close with my team, even though they made fun of me because I have a weird laugh. But I'm really, really, really thankful for all the people that's blessed us, donated, whatever, to bring all of us together and got to do it with God. Okay, cool.
Hey guys. So Annetta mentioned age. I'm the youngest person on this trip. And going into this trip knowing that I was the youngest person, I know I shouldn't make age like a big thing, but I was kind of intimidated, kind of scared and overwhelmed. But what really grounded me, what really rooted me was like what Annetta said, the daily devotionals that we had. And being in another country, saying yes to God, to go into another country that's full of despair, full of darkness, and being the light, it takes a toll on you. It took a toll on each and every one of us. Every day was a new challenge, was a new sight of the devil working. And to be honest, I think there were days all of us were just worn down. We're just broken down that we didn't even have words or tears to cry. Our compassion was so much that we were silent. We were mute. But having those times of devotionals, having those moments where we gathered together as brothers and sisters in Christ, they were so powerful. And I don't think any of us would have been able to handle this trip the way that we did if we didn't have these devotionals. I remember each night we would come together, and we would meet in a variety of places. One day we met in a hotel balcony. One day we met in our home. One day we met in Randall and Jackie's home, and it was just you. When we started worshiping, the walls, the furniture, everything was just echoed by God's presence. Our voices rose up, and praise rose up. And what I usually do during worship is sometimes I get into this moment where I just be quiet and I won't say anything, I won't sing, I'll close my eyes and I'll listen. And I think every night during devotion I did that. And to hear the 11 people behind me being broken, crying out to God for everything that they saw, broke me inside. Those moments were my God moments. Seeing Randall and Jackie cry out, Randall, our father, our spiritual father of the trip, get on his knees and raise his hands out and cry out for the things that we saw on that day or that week broke me. And one song that we sang is the song we sang just now with the ending lines, Our God Reigns. And to sing that over the days that we've had, to sing that over something like Oasis, where broken people come in, broken women come in that have lost who they are, lost the fruitfulness that they have, to sing that over children that live in the dump, to sing that over people that climb through garbage, to say our God reigns over those situations. It was crazy. It's hard to do that. It's hard to say our God reigns over people that fiend for themselves in the garbage. It's hard to say that our God reigns over people that sell their bodies. It's hard to say our God reigns to people that can't, baby children that can't walk or move or play. It's hard to say our God reigns. But every night we proclaim that. We shouted that with all of our souls, with all of our hearts. We prayed that. And I think one day Anne was talking about the dump, and she was like, it's crazy that even in our trash, even in Guatemalan trash, God looks out for those people that are climbing through garbage. He leaves little bits and pieces of food or plastic that they can sell. God looks out for those people. And I thank God that she said that, because I wasn't thinking about that in that way. And the whole thing that I learned through these devotionals is that once you say yes to God, He will use you. That He will change your perspective to see Him in every single situation, in every single moment. I thank God that I had this experience with the 11 people standing behind me, that I had you guys as a church to send these people, because I know I'm not the same. No one standing behind me is the same after this experience.
For me, I know that we helped establish a bridge from New York to Guatemala this past week, but it did not happen this past week. It happened with the call that Randall and Jackie answered over 20 years ago to leave everything and sell everything they had here in the comforts of the United States, which is all they knew, to go to a country they never knew about and set up their life, start a family with a new marriage, having kids in that country that now they call home. They answered that call over 20 years ago. And because of their obedience and because of Anne's obedience and call over 2 years ago to go, we were able to experience what we experienced this week. They cited what happened, glimpses of what happened this past week. My role on this team was a different role that I'm used to. My role was not to lead. My role was not to do anything. My role was not to preach. My role was not to speak. That was not my role. And that's all things that I'm not used to. In that way, I was out of my comfort zone. But I was in the most comfortable spot, most fruitful and most liberating and most, thankful spot I could be in. Because I could stand back, and the word that was given to me through a young man in this church just the week we left was to watch. Watch what the Lord is about to do. Watch what God is going to do through the lives of this team, and watch what God is going to do to the lives of the people of Guatemala. And that's what I did this past week. I watched a church rise up. I watched a church send a group. I watched a church come into action. I watched a church come into action and move like a well-oiled machine. Because one thing we had in a conversation back at our home base was this: how come this doesn't happen back here? Because back here we get too consumed about ourselves and what we think about ourselves. But when we shifted our mind and our focus on how are we going to help somebody that doesn't know Christ, how are we going to help somebody that doesn't know the love of Christ and the community that the people of God can give them, that is when we all come together in unity and we go to serve the Lord. And we don't think about ourselves. We think about what we can do to bless others. And as a church, that's what we need to continue to do. It's going to start with this group right here. I promise you that. I will hold them accountable to that going forward. But we will think about others. And as a church, we will think about others, not just inside the church, but others outside the church, in our homes, in our communities, in our backyards. I saw people do things that they've never done before. But I told them already, they will do it again in this house, because somebody in this house needs to hear the testimonies and the word that God gave to these individuals. I'm so proud of each and every one of them. So proud as a pastor, as a friend, as a brother, literally and spiritually. I'm so proud of each and every one of them. I'm so proud of this church for doing something that I'm going to quote the words of Randall on the last night of the devotional. He quoted, and as a blessing to this church, he said, this trip will be monumental for the life of not just the lives, but monumental in the life of this church. This is just the first trip and the first experience. But I'm going to close with the thought that Randall challenged us with on the last night. And then we're going to go into a time of just one song that we learned and we want to share with you. If the worship team can get ready to do that and this team stays up here, we're going to lead the church in this song that we sang with everyone there. It's a Spanish song. I still don't know all the words. But just sing as the words that you're going to, if you could rise to your feet all over this house. Make some room for the, you're going to probably want to move a little bit. So make some room between the people you're sitting next to. I want to share this one thought that I jotted down in my devotion. I think all of us did. And if we didn't, we will remember it in our minds. Is this. Randall asked us, this could either be a mission life or a life mission. He challenged us. He's saying this week could be just a small experience that we will have in our memories, and that could be it. Or you could turn this into a life mission where everywhere you are, everywhere you go, you think about and intentionally engage in being the hands and the feet of Christ. So if you want it to just be a piece of a memory that you just are going to be satisfied with, then it'll just be a mission life. But if you want it to be something that consumes you and makes it the call of your life and the purpose of your life, you don't have to go on trips to have a mission life. You live every day with the purpose, say, how am I going to be the hands and the feet of Christ? How am I going to share the smile and the heart of God that's going to touch the lives around us? So I want you to, as we worship the Lord and as we leave from this place, don't have a mission life, but live with a life mission. And it consumes everything that we are, that God has complete control. And we want to just celebrate what God has done. We want you to put your hands together. If you know Spanish, sing it out. If you don't, learn it in the next few moments. Read it. It's in English. Read it. If you can move. I can't, so I'm going to let these guys move. It just talks about what Justin talked about earlier. If you have faith the size of a mustard seed and you're facing any mountain in your life, you tell it to move, it will move. Even if it won't move, God will give you the strength to climb that mountain. Amen? You guys ready to thank God? Are you guys ready to thank God? Give Him praise all over this house. Let's go.